thank everybody, especially to Chris. I could spend 10 minutes just singing his praises. I've known him for many years. He's very kind, supportive, and I don't think I'd even be taking a lot of photographs if I hadn't gotten his support years ago. So this was a kind of surprise. I wasn't quite prepared for this invitation. And then Lydia and Sabrina and I tried to come up with some kind of plan of what kind of exhibition, photo exhibition. This is a slice, by the way, of 670 photos that's going to be published by the University of California at San Diego in the spring. So I had to talk to them. It's fine for me to give photos and posters and that sort of thing. And then the problem is the exhibition was supposed to be focused, match the kind of focus of your website, which is Chinese independent film. And not all of my best photographs are associated with Chinese independent film, because many of them were taken at film festivals just for fun or just to sort of connect with those people. So then we decided that at one time we're going to talk about, it could be alternative culture, because I have a lot of photographs about Xinjiang and Jintian, and then I have people who've had political problems. In fact, there's one person that's in a photo right there has actually been to prison. So we thought about that. That would be a great idea, but it was just too complicated to organize, to pick out photographs. I hope someday maybe I can have an addendum and talk about the kind of forerunners for independent underground film. And some of the other poets and writers who are in exile, I have photos of them, people who can't go back to China. So they're also involved in alternative culture. And that's sort of my specialty. I mean, I did a couple of books. I mean, I did a book with Yan Li on, became an underground book. I wrote the introduction, and my first photograph was published in this. The first public that became an underground book. It was published in Iran, and then it was handed out as a underground book. And then I got involved in organizing Xinjiang activities, and that sort of fits into my past political commitments. So then mostly Lydia and I sort of decided how to put this together with Sabrina's input. And I came up with the idea that the only way this is going to work or look good is if I add posters and also photographs of buildings. And so I gave all that to Lydia, and then she made this, I think, a wonderful exposition. I mean, I enjoy looking at it. So that's sort of my history. Then also doing this, actually, while I was involved in this, I all of a sudden realized that Chinese film has been so much a part of my life. I spent, hours and hours watching films in New York City, film festivals, on DVDs, and I feel connected. And in some ways, the early part of my life in China in 1997 sort of fits into some of these independent films. In fact, Wu Wengguang told me once in 2003, "We accept you because your life is similar to the lives we had several years ago." So what does that mean? That means that I'm in the kind of people that I knew before I met Wu Wengguang were people like Bumming in Beijing and many of those other independent films. So thinking about Chinese cinema sort of brought together my sense of my life in China and what I've been doing for the past 20 plus years. I think what's interesting about the photograph, from your point of view, is I did attend in 2001, 2002, I did attend some important film festivals. And one was the first New Image Film Festival in Beijing, the Film Academy, which was canceled by the government. And then I attended also the first gay and lesbian, Chinese gay and lesbian film festival at Beijing University, which was also canceled. And then in Shanghai, I attended a lot of these underground events, which were like very exciting and reminded me of my life in the 1960s, really. And then trying to figure out who these people are. And so I'm sure that that's what people will want to talk to. I think I saw that Shi Tao is on there. I have her photographs in there, and she was at a couple of events that I attended. So I think from a point of view of China Independent Film Archive, it's probably the exhibitions that I attended. And my first photographs, let's see, my first photographs in the US was basically a kind of response to this film From Underground to Independent. And I noticed that first Gay and Lesbian Film Festival was completely left out. And then also Paul Pickeritz made some comments, about some of my friends like Mian Mian, Coco, and Casper and her girlfriend, and without really, in my opinion, fully understanding. So I then started sending out information to the film scholars, and telling that the first Gay and Lesbian Film Festival was not a part of that underground movement. And then Chris saw those photos and suggested that I do something for a position, Asia Critique, which is a kind of elite academic journal. I was hoping Chris would write something about them, but no, they wanted a kind of memoir. So that's what I wrote, was a kind of a memoir about those events. And for me, in 2001, 2002, I felt this incredible sense of community. People from all over China were coming. They learned about, these were not publicized. They were attending all these events. And everybody went to the same gay and lesbian screenings as Zhejiang Ke's underground films. And I felt a sense of euphoria. I felt I'm home. I felt finally I've come back to my roots. That kind of energy and excitement that I had in San Francisco in the 1960s and later. So that was like, so I think from an archival point of view, it's the photographs of like the first Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, and then the Shanghai Panic. Mian Mian was a close personal friend, and this is at a dinner that she hosted. And there's Coco, who was kind of, well, let me step back. Once I talked to a PhD student who's gay, and he was upset by comments made about Shanghai Panic and Coco and those people. And I guess that's reflected in his dissertation. So these photos of Coco were not included in that positions. And then Ai Weiwei, well, all right, we'll go on. So that's about all I have to say. I'm an amateur photographer. Just like Chris said, I took a camera with me. And I came to China in 1997, like a lot of foreigners that changed their life. And that's sort of what's happened to me, at least for that period. That's Wang Fen, that's, I guess, New York style. That's Ai Weiwei's, the mother of Ai Weiwei's children, or son. And I think that Lil Fando is now with, this is with Ai Weiwei's a close friend, or with Ai Weiwei's wife or former wife. So
thank you, Norman. And I apologize for the technological glitch that threw me out of the room. I don't know what was going on.
This is not my thing, by the way. I don't give academic presentations. The college that I go to.
It's not an academic presentation. We're having a chat about your photos. Tell us about this one with Yang Li Na. Where was this taken?
And it was kind of fun seeing, I didn't pay too much attention to the photos of Sabrina, and Lydia when I was having those exchanges. I saw them, but I didn't want to have a sense of who I'm talking to. And then at the launching, I said, my God, they're my, they could be my granddaughters. What kind of wild email am I sending them? But they were very kind and supportive, because they understand that these photos are connected with personal experiences, and the only way I think I need to write about them, but I need to put context, explain who these people were, what I was thinking, because you can't just do it the way I was doing by email. You have to add more context. Actually, two of them that I wrote to you I might actually use. So people want me to talk about young Lena?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the context of this one. When was this taken and where?
Okay, this was taken, all right, well, that was taken. This is one of my favorite photos. She looks serious there.
I think it's great, Norman.
Yeah, that actually, the year before, I had met through Li Xun, a lot of, third, fourth, and fifth generation film directors, beginning with Xie Jin, Xie Fei, Li Xiaohong, He Mei, Pang Xiaolian. So I met all those people, because I did Li Xun a favor, typically Chinese. He paid me back 100 times. And he thought I should learn something about Chinese cinema based on our personal conversations. And then I guess Lena, in 2001, I was teaching at Beijing Broadcasting Institute, and I was with, I think it was a graduate student at Beijing Broadcasting Institute, and she was there with her former boyfriend, Xu Sheng. And I was just amazed about her. And later we became sort of friends. And I was thinking the other day, one of my strongest images of Lena was waiting in a cafe with my translator, who later became a girlfriend, waiting for her. And my image is she was just come from visiting somebody, and she was wearing jeans, rolled up jeans, a kind of floppy shirt. And she reminded me of like a French New Wave film. There was just this there's a kind of dance movement. She's like the coolest person I'd ever seen. I haven't known many people like that. And I don't think that these Chinese independent films quite capture yet that kind of, maybe they do. You've seen more than I do. So I was very impressed, and she's become a family. Well, first she was a friend of she knew and was friends with my former girlfriend, and then now she's a family friend, a close friend of Xiaojin. And she stayed with us and stayed in our house in Brooklyn for 2 months when she was on Asia Council. So she's like one of my favorite. There are a few friends that you really love. Well, she's one of those.
It's a wonderful moment. So many of your photos, I think, the power of them comes from being these sort of candid camera moments, hanging out with people. And in a sense, it's a snapshot, but it captures a moment. And one of the things that for us is so difficult with the whole indie scene is that there isn't really a lot of record, a lot of document of what went on, apart from the films themselves. So I think that's also part of what makes these photographs so valuable, is they give us some images. Yeah.
Chinese in China tend to like my photographs better than professional photographers in New York, because these resemble, as I think I mentioned in my personal statement at the very end, these remember the kind of found photos that people found in trunks. And Chinese artists are doing something with those. They blow them up, they use them a part of their installation or whatever. And in many cities, now that there's a focus on the Cultural Revolution and other kind of controversial subjects, people find these photos and because they're artists and they know how to blow them up or do something creative. So people in China, Chinese in China like my photographs because they're in black and white, and even the ones that are kind of not always in focus or whatever, they bring back memories. And I was influenced by one photographer, I forgot his name. He did a book called Our Generation. And I have his name someplace. I saw his book and I saw, I think 2000, I saw that book and he took all these photos of some of the people here. I said, okay, I think I can take photos as good as his average photos, and this is below average, because he's a professional. And then Lu Peng actually recently had an exhibition of his photographs. And I think that sort of explains Lu Peng kind of interest in my photographs, that they're not the same, but some of them have that same quality. Our generation, the people, and of course there are more, I have more than one generation. And that is Lena, who is actually living with us for 2 months. And I don't speak really Chinese much, and she doesn't speak English, and she was taking English classes. We're not too far from Brooklyn, Chinatown. I visited her, and all of the people in her classes, they were all illegal. They were all illegal immigrants. So she had a kind of exposure to the Chinese diaspora. And they looked like normal, they looked like college students to me. I mean, they were just kind of these nice, lovely women who worked in restaurants and had lots of money to pay back. So she took those classes, English classes, but I think she got more out of the interaction with these young women who had enormous debt to pay back and all the horrible things we read about. Fortunately, those women were not involved in the sex industry. They were just, mostly waitresses.
Yeah, Lydia, let's see if we could move it on to another couple of photos maybe and see what else we can come up with. That's Duhagen's wife.
All right, I don't know whether G&E is supposed to be here, but he might not. So no, that's right. Go back to G&E because I have some stories about it. Go back to G&E. G&E is like he's been involved with a lot of things. He was in charge of me at Beijing Broadcasting Institute. He was teaching English. He had 2 MAs, one from, I guess, I'm not sure what his MA from BBI was, but he had a degree from Notre Dame and Peace Studies. And so he was in charge of me. He knew all about my life. And so we kind of bonded. And then eventually according to him, through my connection with Wu Wonggong, then he got involved with Wu Wonggong in some UN projects. And then he also had something like Cha Chandi in his hometown, where he was involved with training people how to take films. He made some independent, not just Supergirls, but he did like a so-called feature film based on local actors. And then he had problems with the government. Yeah, he had problems with the government and had to shut that down. And so now he spent a summer with it, or a few days with us last summer, I guess. And he's decided to relocate for the time being in Dali. So he's in Dali, involved in a global food project. Very interesting background. So I've known him for years, and that's in front of my house in Brooklyn. And that's his wife. I think he was already married to her.
And so this must have been around the time when the whole China Village documentary project was getting going, right?
Well, that was I knew him in 2001. I mean, 2000.
Okay.
Li Xun's from the China Film Archive, his wife was a dean at Beijing Broadcasting Institute. So I was trying to get some excuse for a sabbatical. I mean, I need sabbaticals just to chill out, right? Because I had this really rough teaching schedule. And so, and I think he read a letter of recommendation he wrote for me explaining that I had met all these people like Xia Fei and Xia Jin and 7 different, and he'd actually set up to where I could teach at Beijing Broadcasting, Beijing Film Academy, but it was only part-time. So I applied and I met him, and then he was a translator for, for Mang Ke, the poet Mang Ke, and also, what's the artist's name?
What artist?
Mang Ke's friend, the artist.
There's so many.
No, I mean the one that I have upstairs, the painting by.
Yang Yiping.
Yang Yiping, who was a member of Sheng Sheng. So we had this event at a bar where Yang Yiping and Mang Ke were there, and some other people, wild conversation, drinking, and so he was a translator for that. And then I met a journalist, a friend of his, who was a female journalist. I took her out to dinner, which is normal in those days, no question about motives. And then we were in a club where some Chinese rock and roll music. I don't have those photos. I'd like to include them sometime. Rock and roll musicians, they're having a birthday, I gave them a drink, and then they wouldn't let me out because she took a taxi. And so I spent the evening drinking and smoking weed, which people did.
One of the things that's very interesting in your memoirs and your comments introducing the exhibition as well is how you relate this time in Beijing to your memories of the late 60s, early 70s in the USA, and how you see it as somehow a parallel moment when things were opening up, when there was a sort of a similar kind of underground scene. And I wonder, just thinking about what you were just saying right now about this kind of bar scene and the smoking, the drinking, et cetera, and of course the art and the culture. If you'd like to say a little more about that.
Well, what I'm waiting for is for people to start doing more with talking about, I guess they've done that with books on high culture fever. A couple of books, at least in English, on high culture fever, where they talk about, actually that's where Li Shanting comes up, because Li Shanting was, he was connected to the, Chinese artistic freedom demonstrations in 1979. He was connected to all that, right? And he knew, and he was involved with all these different circles. So that's why I've mentioned to some of you that somebody needs to take a 4-hour documentary of him. Yeah, so then people can write a book because he covers it all, all the, high culture fever, the underground, and then 1989, I forgot the famous art exhibition, 1989 was Xiaolu. Mm-hmm. Dialogues, he gets out a pistol and shoots a pistol right. I mean, that is like such a defining moment in terms of alternative artistic culture. I have a photo of her. I'd like to figure out some way to kind of include that into a kind of extension of what I'm doing for you now. It would take a little time and thinking, but maybe I could get other people involved in donating photographs. So, all right, let me step back. So basically my rhythm, beginning in 1997 on up to today, is that I would teach in my college, which is basically of students who've been to university for the first time, first in their generation, It's open admission and it's an exciting place to teach, but it's like you're a teacher and a social worker. So I do that, very rewarding because I teach mostly Black literature and things, you know, are related to that. And then I spend my time in New York going to art exhibitions and all the different film festivals. And so basically I don't leave China. I really don't. I just prepare myself for returning the next summer. And then when I'm around Chinese artists, sometimes I talk with translation, with a translator, or some of them speak English. I mean, I talk about art to Chinese film directors. Some of them know something, some don't. So it's, and I see overlaps. But I'm sitting around with people. They're usually people from different generations. So I would like to see some kind of interdisciplinary art. Maybe that's an idea for from an issue for one of your journals. Is you talk about parallel influences, because people are reading all those novels, you know, and then what kind of influence is fifth generation? I mean, they have interesting, powerful films too, like Alicia, I forgot the one that Li Xiaohong does. It's based on a Marquez short story.
Bloody Morning, yeah.
I just knocked me out, you know, it just knocked me out. I mean, that film.
I think that's a very good point, actually, that you just made, Norman, that, of course, you know, the 80s is that moment when everything that has been kept out of China starts to get translated and come in, you know, from French New Wave, Italian neorealism, but also all the stuff from the 60s and so on is all pouring in and being avidly consumed through the 80s and 90s by young people like the ones we're seeing in these photos. I wonder if we could at this point sort of open things up and just see if any of our audience have any comments or questions. I think people will.
I just thought you were talking about this kind of evoked my countercultural radical past. One time, I don't have the photos from Dali. I mean, Dali is a kind of free zone. And one time after Lil Fando, he's a film director, he did a film called Green Hat. And he was a friend of Zhang Yang. He had a birthday party, and they had, in those days you could smoke marijuana out in the open. That's completely shut down. And so we're sitting around with Lil Fando and a group of other people. And there was a woman who looked from the Mediterranean. People were speaking English and Chinese. I wasn't sure where she was from. And later I found out, what's the famous?
Here we are in front of your Dali house, Norman.
Yang what? Yang Li Ping. She was there. She turned out to be a dancer from Brazil. So I asked her sort of playfully, I said, "Where are you from?" And she said, "Brazil." And I said, "Me too," because we were. And I said, "Where?" Botafogo, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And she grew up in the same neighborhood. So we had this kind of playful conversation. She asked me, "Why do you come back to China so often?" And I said, "To get back to Brazil." She said, "Me too." Meaning the Rio de Janeiro of our youth. She grew up on the same street that I grew up in, different generation. So I think at least in Dali, and I guess you could translate to Beijing if you're lucky to be in with the next group, there was a kind of energy and excitement. And so people are kind of reliving certain moments in their past that were exciting that have kind of disappeared. So you come to a foreign country, I'm sure it's true of expatriates in other parts of the world. There's a kind of, and then also when you're in, when I'm in China, I'm a whole person. I'm just a foreigner. I'm just a foreigner. And somehow I don't have these conflicts like I have in the United States, political conflicts, being the outsider. I am by definition a kind of outsider, but I feel as a complete person. So
we're getting a couple of questions coming in now, Norman. And I'd like, if Sabrina doesn't mind, I'd like to just start first with Hongwei's question.
Yeah, my question follows Hongwei's, so I think it would be great.
So perhaps if you have, look here, we are at the first Chinese Gay and Lesbian Film Festival at Beijing University. And Hongwei asks if you could tell us a little bit more about your experience of this festival. How did you come to be there? What did you observe? What was your sense of the event, the time, the occasion?
Well, this came, I believe after the first New Image Festival. So I'd already been, I was in Beijing Film Academy. And the only, I think I was the only other foreigner there. You can ask me questions about that, because through our conversations, there is some misinformation about the box, Ying Weiwei. Actually, it was not shut down because of that. I saw that film and a lot of other films. So I came there through Xiaolu, who was, well, she wasn't clear about who she was, but she fit into the kind of LGBT culture. And she had become a personal friend by that time. She was a reporter for one of my favorite photos. I mean, it was actually included. So she arranged for me to meet with, at first, I mean, a kind of, I guess it was a lunch on campus. And I can't pronounce Sui Zin's name very well, but he was there, and several other.
Second from the left, yeah.
So I don't know whether that's the first time I met Sui Zin or not, but, and so we watched those films, and there's incredible energy, you know, and then we're all watching these transgressive films, and I think she's in the audience. I saw her name. I mean, hope she is. I'm not sure. So this was taken, that was taken at the restaurant. This was taken at the performance. She gave a talk. And I'm of the generation, an older generation, for LGBT culture is rebel culture for me, my generation. I identify with that culture because it's rebel culture. I'm rebel culture. It fits in with the 60s. And also I live especially in San Francisco. I mean, there's all that interaction with poet Ginsberg and I forgot some of the other things. So I immediately, and also I think we had discussions about my relative, Rogers Albritton, years ago, who was taught at Harvard and stuff. I mean, he was out from very long. So I sort of grew up even at 12 years old, knowing about that culture. And the way my parents presented it was as a kind of interesting, cultural phenomenon. So going there was watching the films. I think we watched the films for 2 days. And then I think you can switch to the reception. Or maybe Xiaolu. Do you have her photograph? Xiaolu? She's the one who's smiling. Xiaolu? Let's see where.
Do you mean Xiao Yu?
Xiaolu. No, she. Let me see. Where is this?
Is she?
That's her. Okay, so she's my friend. She's the one. So she was a former Elysian student and worked for China Daily or I forgot
Weekly.
Week. And she's responsible for most of the people I met until I became friends with them. She's responsible for me meeting Wu Wenguang and Jia Jiangke and my translator, later girlfriend. We used to hang out together, and she was just an amazing person. And so that's one of my favorite photographs because it shows her personality. So she's the one who arranged for me to be a part of this. And then Then they had a reception, and it was mostly LGBT people. And I was the only foreigner, and I was probably one of the few that were not apart. There were a few actors, and I don't know whether the students. And so I was, she couldn't spend time with me, but she arranged for, I think they were graduate students from Beijing University, and they picked me up. And I think, no, I wrote to you that the energy level was just so high. I didn't think it was going to end. I think this would be, based on my 60s experience, this was going to end up in somebody's loft or even in a bathhouse. And I was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to deal with that? I'm going wherever people are going. And I just figured out what my bottom line was in terms of being in a bathhouse or in something. So it fizzled out. During the 1960s in San Francisco, it would have ended up in somebody's loft, and there would have been something wild, dancing and who knows what. Yeah, I forgot his name. I mean, he was at the dinner before.
Yeah. And so you were saying just a moment ago that you think that there's some misunderstanding about what happened, that some people thought it was closed down early, but actually it wasn't, or?
Well, my understanding is this, that they allowed all the films to be screened, but then there's supposed to be something after that. That's what Dai Tinhua, there's supposed to be some intellectual discussions, and that was canceled. So everybody got to see the films. And then I think by watching 2 days of these films, people were all drawn into those films, you know, emotionally and psychologically. I mean, so that was my experience. And I'm that type of person. I don't look critically at films. I just throw myself into them. And so that's why that reception to me had such high energy, because we were watching all those films, you know, for at least 2 days, and people were, there was a kind of excitement and energy. Anyway, I felt honored that I was invited to that, because it wasn't an outsiders event; it was an insiders event.
Right.
And I think that's one of my most important honors. I mean, there's no real need for me to be there, but Xiaolu made sure, and she picked out a couple of friends, and then that's Shitao and her friend.
Yeah, and I think Shitao is actually here in the room today.
Well, I'm happy. I don't know her birthday. I certainly love the way she looks, and I admire her, and I haven't followed through with her. I haven't seen her films, and that's another question that comes up. Who gets to see Chinese independent films? It's very difficult for those of us who are not scholars to have access to them. And so I haven't seen some of her, and unless you go to, I used to spend a lot of time at NYU, then have like 3 days worth of films. I was one of the few people who attended every one of them and come out almost like ready to faint. It was such an intense experience. So in that photo that you saw, the first one you saw, I just found that photo, you know, the one where she's at the podium. That wasn't in the 10 years of queer cinema.
Okay. I'm wondering if Shitao would like to say anything about her memories of that occasion. I'm not sure if that would be interesting. Shitao, 你要不要说一两句话?
Chris, actually, my question is for Sito as well. So
Okay,
I'll ask in Chinese, and because she said she speaks Chinese. And 我看到好几张石头的那个照片，刚才 Norman 也说过了，所以我很想知道，石头当时你有没有意识到 Norman 在照这些照片啊？然后过了这么多年，如果你当时不知道，之后也没有看过，那过了这么多年，忽然看到这些照片，你是什么感受？我很想听听石头的一些反馈。
好，谢谢。哇 ，Hello， Chris Berry Norman，
欢迎。
我其实很意外哦，真的我不知道罗曼在拍照片，谢谢你拍了这些照片，就是。
Well, that's a good thing. That's good. Well, all right. So, what is my feeling about looking at those photos now?
No, we want to hear what Chateau has to say.
But I think the question, maybe I'm wrong, is what am I feeling now?
其实我蛮想介绍一下那个时候，对，就是当时这个电影节是非常重要的，是我们那个同志的第一个，就是中国的第一个独立的同志电影节啊。然后这个算是一个开创。那有了这个电影节之后，到了现在，什么酷儿电影周呀，我们的酷儿巡展呀，都是从那个时候开始启蒙的，所以非常非常的重要。诺曼就对抓到了这一个瞬间。然后呢，那你可以看到刚才的第一张那个合影，有崔子杨洋啊，还有那个张元呐什么的，对，这一张也还有这个第三个，对，那个陈青松是吧？陈松青，对，对。然后对这些朋友们都非常的棒，因为他们就是创立者嘛，特别是像杨洋啊这样，他自己是北大的。然后因为这个电影之所以能够在北京大学做成这个电影节，就是因为他们叫了一个名字叫这个中国同志电影节，那别人就以为是那个 comrade， 就以为是革命的同志，所以我们才能够顺利的放映。然后呢，还有一点要补充的就是，其实我们当时的计划是要在清华大学做一个后续的放映的。那清华大学这个其实就被取消了，所以呢，我想诺曼可能参加了那个，就是我们没有放映成嘛。那么现在这张照片上，就是我们有一个聚会，就因为不能在清华大学放映，所以大家在一起聚会，在盒子咖啡，也是在海淀区的，然后大家一起来就是分享自己的一些东西。那诺曼你在哪里？我当时不知道。对，那个放映就是这个电影节，就是那个我有放映了，我参演的一个片子叫《Fish and Elephant》，就是今年夏天。那个导演叫李玉呢，他跟我说他非常激动，对，他非常激动，他说，因为我们演的电影第一个中国的女同志电影竟然不能够公映，知道吗？他其实是很沮丧的，但是在这边放映了以后，他来参加现场交流，他非常激动。那也许作为诺曼来讲，他会觉得哇，好像这个是很内部的一个电影节。可是其实，我们在现场，我们感觉是因为现场其实场差不多是爆满，就是很多人都站在那个就是那个大概几百人吧，那个大厅里面，那个观众很多都是站在外面看电影的，就站在那个座位以外看电影的。所以应该是我们那个电影节的盛况，而且就是开市大吉，真的是应该恭喜。对，
感谢。
好，我说
Thank you。
对，还有那个小鱼，他也是我的朋友，对，小鱼。对呀，谢谢，谢谢，
谢谢你。OK。
Yeah, I'd like to make.
Thank you very much, Chateau. That was fantastic. Norman, what were you going to say?
Well, I think Chateau knows more about this than I do. What I found exciting about all these events in 2001 and 2002 is everybody's attended the same events. It wasn't, now I think they have they have a women's film festival. They have a gay and lesbian film festival. And so they're kind of separated out. I don't know who goes to those films, but what was special now is that this was new. And there's a kind of energy, and people from everywhere would come and attend them. And even science majors, from 100 miles away would take the train down to attend these events. And so the people who attended those together, outsiders, not the filmmakers, we just felt like a sense of community. And that's why it reminded me of San Francisco in the 1960s, is because everybody was together, you know, and that to me was what is exciting, is that the people, same people who attended the First New Image, or many of them attended that, and then you would meet them at other events. Now, I don't know whether that's completely split up now, and you have separate film festivals. Who attends those women's film festivals, and who attends the LGBTQ film festivals? So
one of the questions in the chat,
is there that same sense of community and coalition that used to have in 2001, 2002? And that would be my question. Today.
So that's not, yeah. So that's a question for Chateau then. I wonder, Chateau, if you heard Norman's question, and if you have a comment on how things are changing. I'm not sure if it was translated or not, Norman. So,
well, yeah, let me just make it simple. In 2001, people of different groups, different orientations, background, attended to the same underground film events, you know,
right.
Whether it was screening of Dajanku's platform or whatever it was, right? And then I noticed, because I haven't kept up with everything, now you have the gay and lesbian film festivals. They have their own festivals, and then you have women's film festivals, and then you have other. So I just wonder whether that sense of I'm interested because in political coalitions, right? Are there still these kind of coalitions that you have where people are attending the same film festivals? Are men attending, you know, I mean, male film directors attending the women's film festivals? Because it was all together. We were all having this new experience, and that's what gave it the energy and excitement.
Yeah, let's see what Chateau has to say. Chateau, 我希望你听见了那个Norman 的问题，不知道你有没有一个看法吗？
我听到，对，那从2001年到现在已经19年过去了，可是同志的电影可能因为主要是因为是审查制度的原因，但是说到这个团体的话呢，现在在中国我们延续了那个同志电影节之后，到现在有那个酷儿电影周，然后有在上海有酷儿电影节，有之前是有那个上海骄傲节里面也是有酷儿电影的那个影展的部分。那我们现在呢，我自己还有我们一些朋友们，就是我们还有一个中国独立酷儿影像小组，在全中国一直在做巡展，从2008年到现在，我们放映的地方并不是只限于在那个社群，就是那个同志的社群里面，我们也会有大众，就是说，我自己亲身经历的就是有男女跨性别，或者是那个 LGBT 或者是asexual 什么各种很多元的人都有来参加我们的影展活动，然后也会有一些主流的社会里的一些人，对，那可是当然呢，因为我们不可以在电影院里面放映，所以我们都是用别的渠道来做这件事情。这个呢是可能跟其他议题的那个独立电影节会有一点电影展会有一点区别，酷儿电影它还是一个被限制的一个话题，但是可是在这个限制之下，对它还是有一个生生不息的一个运作，对，还在活动。我一会儿把我们的 T 恤拿给你们看哈，好，你们继续说。
Thank you. 谢谢。Okay. Norman, there's another question in the chat from Luke Robinson that I think relates to this. And Luke has asked, saying, you know, how, 非常好。
对 ，sorry， 我打扰一下，就是对，我们就有这个 T 恤，从08年到现在，我们一直有这个去，我们要看同性恋电影节，我们要看同性恋电影，对，这样的，所以我们每到一个地方，我们都一直在有这个。我们进到那个农村的学校，然后也进到什么一些，就是我们进到一些大学里面，然后也曾经有大学的副校长啊什么的也来作为来声援来支持我们的，还好没有死。Okay,
Great, fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a couple of other questions in the chat, and I'd like to first of all pick up a question from Luke Robinson, which in a way relates to what you were just talking about earlier, Norman. And Luke points out that
my T-shirt.
Oh, okay.
That's our first New Image T-shirt.
Ah, wow. Yeah. First New Image Film Festival.
Yeah, I have two.
Okay.
two T-shirts.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So Luke points out that the exhibition covers many years, and we are wondering if you had any reflections on how you think the indie film scene changed over those years when you were photographing it, and the alternative culture scene in general, and also whether your own position as a photographer in that scene changed over time, over the period you were taking photographs.
Well, I mean that's a question that scholars should answer. I mean, I do read these, read your books and other people's, Luke Robinson. I mean, I read these academic books, but I don't use them. You know, I mean, I don't teach Chinese cinema, though I did.
But what was your own experience? What was your own experience of the scene? That's what he's asking. You know, did you experience the scene as changing?
Oh, sure, because I had a relationship with Jia Jiangke, and that was, those film posters were given to me. That was in 2001, 2002, and I actually taught. I mean, I screened, which would have been illegal for Chinese to do. I actually screened, you know, these kind of things, underground films that you would get underneath. It was, you know, it was almost like looking for pornography or something. You'd say, what do you have under the counter? And
yeah.
So I screened Xiaowu, which a Chinese faculty member couldn't do. I also screened some Hou Xiaoxian film, which was controversial, but the university or institute trusted me in terms of my politics, more or less, and I was a foreigner, and I didn't actually teach them. We'd screen those films, and then we'd have for discussion. I had my Chinese students respond to those films. That would be, I mean, English conversation for year number 3 or something like that. And I do remember, since this has just come to my mind, I showed Xiaowu, and then a lot of my students, in this case, I think maybe 60% were female and came from urban backgrounds. And they said, oh, we don't know who Xiaowu is. They said, this is beyond our experience. And I told them, I said, I'll introduce you to Xiaowu. He's just around the corner. He's in that. He has the double-breasted suit. You know, he's in one of those restaurants drinking Arto or whatever the Beijing Baijiu.
Yeah.
Arguoto. I said, I can introduce you to him, and look at all the people who are building all these buildings. So that's how I didn't like to show American film. I mean, I wasn't that interested in America, though I shared something. I wanted to learn something about China from them. And so I was able to kind of change their minds. And then they ask about the Taiwan issue with Ho Xiaoxian. I think I showed good men, good women. I didn't teach it in any sophisticated way. We basically saw it together. And my position was give Taiwan a chance to develop its own identity to all these exciting films. So BBI allowed me to do that. And later, I guess my sense of it changing is just not really being connected directly to those film directors. Jia Zhangke I kept up with. He's like very generous. I think in 2002, I ran into him, and there was a Japanese journalist who had watched the screening, the making of Platform. And I said, oh, in a playful way, I'm so jealous. I wish I could be there. They said, okay, next time there's an opportunity, we'll let you attend. So that's led to 24 Cities. Xiaojian and I watched that.
And how come you were on set for that?
Yeah, we were on set. It was a funny experience because Jia Zhangke arranged for us to stay in the same hotel. I mean, they, I guess, paid the bill or whatever. And it was a military hotel. So Xiaojian and I show up for that. We had a room there. And then I'm a foreigner. And I wasn't allowed to stay in a military hotel. So they figured out a way to get around that. Xiaojian was able to stay there. And then I would be like her boyfriend or whatever. The officers would, have girlfriends or whatever. So I basically was able to spend the night with her. So, and then we basically stayed out of the way because you don't want to get involved. I mean, we would eat in restaurants together and I wouldn't ask too many questions. I'm pretty good at just sitting on the sidelines and kind of feeling the environment. And then later on, we met his actor's wife in Shanghai for a short time. So after that, I sort of, also when he came to New York, he arranged for me to attend the kind of gala reception at MoMA. So I sort of lost connection with that. But I watched the films just like a typical film fan. I mean,
okay. I have a follow-up question from about the photographs at the first Gay and Lesbian Film Festival.
Okay.
And Hongwei asks, did you have any concern about the issue of people's privacy and consent at this time when you took these photos or later when you published them? And how did you deal with that if that did come up for you?
Well, I mean, let's be clear. Those were the days when everybody was pirating films, I mean, you had it, Jia Zhangke supported pirating of films. So it was like a cultural movement on the move, and everybody knew that I was there to take photographs. I mean, that was understood. And I always present them, I'm not a scholar, I'm not a professional photographer. They basically always presented myself as a student of Chinese contemporary culture. That's how I was introduced to all these people. I didn't come off as an academic or scholar. And I wasn't threatening, to them. I started off, once Li Xun started introducing me to He Mei and Xie Fei and Xie Jin and Huang Shuqing and all those people, right? At first I thought I would have a tape recorder or something, and I might write something up. Then they didn't want to be taped. They wanted an informal conversation. They wanted to know about me, who I was, And that's why Wu Wengguang, I think I mentioned in an email, when Xiaolu was arranging for me to meet him, he wanted to know, how old are you? How old is he? And she said, 58. He said, old enough, meaning that I had enough experiences. I wasn't just like a young, bright graduate student who had to have everything explained to them. So he knew that I'd had experiences, not the same as his, but comparable in terms of violence and conflict and stuff like that. So later, that became an issue about permission, because I did have a book that was printed. Yeah, I had 2 books, and this is the other one. These, and that's what you wrote. All right, so a couple of these are famous companies. So they basically put that book together, and then the laws changed in terms of permission. In other words, you can have photographs, and yeah, you can, in terms of newspapers, just like Variety. Mian just used some of my photographs in the current Variety. She didn't have to get permission for that. And also in journals, but no. So later, just as these books were getting ready to distribute, then they changed the Chinese law about permissions. You had to have permission. But if anybody's read my background, I'm kind of an anarchist. I always break rules. It's in my blood, you know. But everybody knew I was there to take photos. They saw me taking them. Nobody cared, you know. And they knew that I was going to do something with them. I wasn't clear what I was going to do something with them. It's only much later. My first, let's see, my first published photo. Let's see, where's that Yan Li thing? Yeah.
So did the changes in the
my first published photo was published in an underground book that the government didn't pass censorship, and I mentioned that. And so here is Yan Li with Lil Solo. You have this photograph. And here's a photo of me with Xu Bing and a bunch of artists, right? So this is my first published. And then Zhang Yanjian, if I pronounce his name, he published this photo without telling me, but he gave me credit for it. I just got this book in the mail. I looked it up. I said, hey, there's my photo. And so that's my first photograph published in the United States. And then, let's see, where's the positions?
So Norman, when
then I had a whole group of photographs published, which you were involved in. I mean, you sort of opened the way for me. So I didn't have permission, but you don't have to have permission to publish photographs in journal. I don't know about in the UK, they're stricter about this perhaps, but in the United States, as long as it's in a catalog, like an art catalog, or if it's, so I haven't had, and then even when I'm in Dali, I take photographs. The University of California at San Diego, they're gonna print out, publish 680 photographs of mine. And there's not a problem as long as it's not a book. If I wanted to have a book, like a University of California Press, then I might have problems in terms of getting.
You need to have all the people in the photos.
Right. In terms of, I mean, there's this whole issue of who gets to watch film. I mean, documentary films of any kind in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They're prohibitively expensive.
Could you talk a little bit more?
$100 to show in your classes, and the ordinary person doesn't get, even the kind of social activist groups don't have access to films that are very relevant and very important to them. So there's this whole question about copyright, who gets to see them. And I'm hoping that your organization, now that you have a YouTube, that you're going to make it access. I mean, a lot of Americans could benefit American
Yeah. I mean,
actors.
of course, if we have permission from the filmmakers, we will be doing that. Norman, Lydia is asking about the photos of Yen Li and Liu Suola. I think you just showed them. And maybe Lydia can bring them up here on the exhibition. You told, during the course of putting together the exhibition, you told Lydia that these were among your favorite photos. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about why these ones are such favorites for you. What's the story behind that?
First of all, when I took those photographs, I said, okay, I can be a photographer. They're good enough. You know, the other ones, as you said, were more of this kind of, well, even these are kind of snapshot. So this was, and also, Liu Suola is a writer, you know, and she's a composer, was married to a famous composer. And then also she was in an all-women's reggae band in London. And so she has this very kind of rich background. And then Yen Li is a part of that, of the Xing. He was a poet and a writer. He was a part of that democracy, artistic democracy. And I met him, and basically we used to have these long conversations. He would talk about his life, I'd talk about my life, and we try to connect them together. That kind of memoir essay is out of that. So what were we doing? Suola was getting ready to move back to the United States, back to China. And she was trying to put together some photographs from her family photographs. And Suola is a kind of, she has a kind of a diva quality to her in a very nice way. And you know, because she played jazz too. I mean, she's one of the few people, Chinese people that, Chinese, I don't know, actually really gotten into Black music. Once Yen Li told me when I first met her, oh, she knows something about jazz. And I thought, oh, come on, that's the Japanese I could understand. Then I met her. And so she played with Ornette Coleman, all these avant-garde and musicians. And she went to Mississippi and studied the blues. So we had a lot in common. And so we were just playing around, smoking a joint, to be honest with you. I mean, that's your Xinjiang aesthetic. That's the perfect example. And somebody took those, there's a photo of me in that group, but I don't know whether Yen Li smoked. So it was just like smoking a little bit of marijuana and drinking wine and having a delicious meal. Been looking over her photographs. And then later, Yen Li became my closest friend. I mean, one of my close, he's a family friend now. And Suola, we see her, she's married to Akbar Abbas, who's like a famous Hong Kong intellectual who teaches part-time. And so I met them on different occasions. So, and then I forgot who's the artist, Deng Chang. Who's the artist who did that? Deng Changqing?
Yeah.
She doesn't remember.
Okay.
Well, there's a famous artist whose name escapes me, who lived in the United States. He lived on 42nd Street, you know, when you had basically prostitutes and stuff like that. And he used to do sketches like that. And then he went back. So that's a famous,
So
famous.
I think Yen Li is actually here in the room, in the Zoom room. So I'm wondering if Yen Li would like to say anything himself.
Yeah, he could ask a question about this. Yen Li can speak in Chinese.
Here we go. Yeah, go right ahead.
好的，能听见我的声音吗？
能听见。好。
能听见我的声音吗？
对对。
是这样，我跟Norman认识了有20年了，从1999年开始，当时他正在特别关心中国的电影， 我们在一个中国的一个小型的中国的电影节放映中国影片的时候认识了。之后他就了解了我是新兴画会的成员以后，他就向我咨询很多关于新兴画会的事情。为什么？因为当时他能看到的所有的书籍上面关于新兴的记录都是只有10几个字，一笔带过。但是他又听说这个新兴呢当时很重要，我就跟他讲了所有关于新兴的那个经过，新兴画会的经过，也讲了新兴画会和今天这个地下文学刊物的关系。他们都是1978年到1979年那时候发生的事情。那么他就很敏感地问我，那你有多少资料我能看？当时我就说 OK， 你经常来中国，哪天你来到上海我家里，我就有一次，后来过了1年，大概2000年，他就到了上海，因为那时候他教一些在一个学校里，宁波一个学校里教英文。那么我就把照片在我家里，上海家里就全部摊在地板上，一堆关于当时的情况。然后他就翻了，他就在那挑了很长时间，挑出一些照片。他说：“哟，我们是不是能够把这些东西编成一本书？”我说：“那就只能从我的角度，因为你要编成书，因为有版权问题。如果我只是编一个个人的一个 memo 的一本书，自费出版，而且不销售的话，那应该没有问题。”所以后来我们经过2、3年的时间，编了一本，就严厉70年到70年代到80年代在北京的朋友们。所以后来我们他写了一个前言，这个前言的第1句话就是很多执政者都会重新撰写他们的历史，他希望从独立的角度、民间的角度来记录历史。那么他这个文章一写了，你也想找任何的地方出版是不可能的，所以我们就自费出版。那时候正好碰到一个伊朗的学者，他也经常翻译，他叫伊斯迈尔。他呢在中国上海呢教那个伊朗文，上海外国语学院教伊朗文。他也是个诗人，英文又特别好。他呢翻译了很多美国的诗人，就西方的英文的诗人的诗，介绍给在波斯的这个就伊朗的那个文化界。那么他就说，我有一个出版社，我可以帮你们出版，只要你不卖就行了。后来就以伊朗的那个出版社，这伊斯迈尔的那个出版社就出版了。出版以后，这个书都是正月的，但作为民间记录历史的一部分，就像你们那个独立电影资料馆一样收集。我觉得诺曼在独立记录历史的这个方面，他对中国的不光是电影，也记录了艺术和文学的东西。所以这本书我觉得我后来赠送，印了1000本，大概全部给赠送完了都。所以呢，大家就对那段历史，因为里头也介绍了新兴，介绍了今天，介绍了当时的作品等等。那么作为一个旁观者，Norman 他 有更敏锐的一个角度来记录这个东西。就像他自己说的，他从来没有想到过这是可以出名，这是可以盈利，他从来没想到过。所以呢，我觉得就是因为这种态度，才能更真实的记录一些东西。而且还有重要一点我要介绍的就是说，诺曼他作为一个相当对文学、艺术、电影敏感的一个人，他也有他自己的原则和他的那个理想。但从另一个角度讲呢，他最喜欢说的一句话就是说，严厉，我需要一些气。他理解了中国人说的那个气，就是 energy。他说我看到这些人，这些艺术家，这些电影工作者，这些演员，他们身上的气，他说我要需要这个气 energy。这是他经常跟我说的。当然他跟我谈了很多很多关于他个人的关于美国的黑人的运动，爵士乐。那曾经我在他那住过很长时间，有一段时间我们俩就经常是一瓶酒喝完了为止，就一聊很长时间。所以呢，我认为就是说记录历史的方式，他不仅是个旁观者，而且他是有一个针对性的一个旁观者。因为他也看到了主流媒体或主流的出版业记录的这些东西，他对这东西有所肯定是潜意识或是有意识，他是有怀疑的。所以还原历史的真实，从他的照片里头，那他跟我谈了很多，那这些东西就是说没有机会写出来，但是从他照片里头我们能看到他帮助我们中国文化的那种发展所提供的一个从外人的角度，对吧？甚至他不懂中文，但是他能从你的表情，从你的那个 behavior， 从你的那个最后一句话就是气，他能感觉到很多东西，他抓住了这个东西。虽然他不是一个专业的摄影师，但是他是一个专业的感受者，这一点很重要。所以我觉得诺曼他的那些照片，他现在梳理了一部分，因为他还有很多没有梳理出来的，还没整理出来的，甚至有些东西可能需要用 Photoshop 处理一下，因为他这种抓拍，大家都知道这种抓拍是相当难的，对吧？有时候它就不那么清晰。那么通过现在的高科技，其实都能给它改良，给它做得更清晰一点。我觉得诺曼还可以继续就说整理他的照片，我觉得还有很多资源在里头。谢谢诺曼，也谢谢主持人。
Thank you very much. 谢谢 Andy. So that clears up the Tehran connection. I was always wondering how come the book was published in Tehran? So now we figured that out.
To me, as an American, right, it's so cool. I published a book in Tehran, in Iran.
Indeed.
That's a huge deal for me to be able to tell Americans that I published it.
还有一个补充，因为呢，我要说一个，还有补充。德黑兰这本书里头呢，出现了一张图片，是我和艾薇薇在那个 Watch Center 那个就是被炸之前嘛，那是在1985年，我们俩做的第一个行为艺术一样的，就拍了一张照片。那么这个书出了以后呢，伊朗有关方面发现了这个照片，因为他们是不允许有裸体照片的。 结果这个伊斯麦尔受到了很大的压力，
哎呀，
然后我就写了一个说明，我这本书是委托
Here's
出版社
this is
自
made
费
in
印
London.
刷的。
This is Yan Li and Ai Weiwei in front of
Mm.
Twin Towers.
OK，
然后呢，我就写了一个证明，寄到德黑兰他们那个出版社，他们出版社再交给新闻检察机关，说这本书是一个中国艺术家委托他们出版社印刷的，不是在伊朗境内是不销售的，而且在其他地方也是不销售的。后来这个事儿总算过去了。
Okay, that's really interesting. 非常有意思，谢谢。So we should also add, I think it's important that in this exhibition, we're focusing very much on Norman's photographs from the independent film scene. But, and this is something I was hoping to say before the technology defeated me earlier on, the main collection of Norman's photography and other materials is being put together and collected at the University of California, San Diego, UCSD library. And I believe their exhibition is also going to go online very, very soon. I think at this point we are now out of time. Norman, would you like to, are there any closing words you would like to say?
Well, I don't think, we talked about the first New Image film festival. That was before, that was like a very exciting exhibition at Beijing Film Academy. And I think I read an article where they said that basically it was shut down, that they didn't get to see Ying Weiwei's The Box, and that's not true. I was there. Why? That was like one of the most exciting films. There's another one by, Yan Li would know this name, about a poet. His nickname was Goldfinger. He was in a mental institution, and he was a kind of inspiration for Beidao and people like that. That was an exciting film. So yes, Ying Weiwei's film was screened to a standing ovation, and then I was able to meet her a few days later. And ironically, she asked me, which seemed kind of ridiculous, for a letter of recommendation because she wanted to go on to do advanced studies. So I stayed in touch with her for a couple of years, and I don't think she was. Maybe I don't think she was in the. Maybe she was in the audience. So yeah, a lot of exciting films were shown at that film festival, and they shut it down after I think 2 days. I'm not sure exactly. You have to look up the history about that. And then the organizer, you have the photo of the organizer. The photo of the organizer. The curator, there's a photo of the curator for the first.
Yeah, Lydia, are you able to show that photograph? There we are. Yeah,
So yeah, he's one of many. I guess there were faculty who were involved in organizing that, but he was the primary one. And I guess there are people who can tell you in Beijing, can say more about him. And then there's the poster, which I took the poster of. No, that's not the. Oh yeah, that one. So I just took that poster, photograph of the poster. So I think from your perspective, that the Li Shanting photo, and then the buildings, the Xiaoshuandi workstation, photographs are important for you to have, because you actually, because that doesn't exist anymore. That's been shut down.
That's right. That's right.
So, and I hope the scholars will use some of my photograph. Actually, the book that has the best photographs that I've seen is in this book. He uses a lot of posters, and I mean, most Chinese film scholars have some photos, but that's the whole idea for me. Is for I hope people actually use some of my photos.
Well,
And
we do
books.
too, and I think there's a very good chance, frankly, that with the photos being here, associated with all the other materials that will be in the archive, they and the other materials will get plenty of use.
Plus, your graduate students, you have PhD students who are working on.
We all do, and we hope they will.
They are welcome to use my photos.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. So thank you, Norman. Thank you very much for allowing us to hear some of the background to some of these photos today. I hope everybody will return to the exhibition. I'm sure they will, and have a bit more of an exploration later on when you have more time.
People should watch.
As mentioned earlier, in a couple of weeks, we will have a screening of the film The Crack by Li Wake, and a discussion about that. And you'll get some more publicity about that soon. And now, just to close for today, thank you for your patience. We're, as I say, a little over time, but we had some problems getting started. So thank you for bearing with us. And I'd like to invite everybody at this point to put your microphone on and join me in giving Norman a round of applause to thank him for giving us access to these wonderful photographs. Thank you, Norman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and bye-bye.